Good morning, everyone. Now, this is the third lecture on the topic Union Parliament. The unit Union Parliament. The topic is parliamentary privileges. Previously, we have already done about Parliament, its composition and its organization and enactment procedure. Now, third is Parliament privilege, which is again an important part. Now, here we start with Parliament privileges. What are these? So, basically, they are the power and privilege. They are the special rights, the immunity, and some exemptions which is enjoyed by two houses of parliament, their committee and their members. So parliament privileges are the special rights which is given to the members, the committee and the house of parliament differently. That's why I've put comma in between. I'll explain it later about its classification. So these are some privileges given to them. Parliamentary privilege we call, in which anyway if we read it first, what is the need of giving such privilege? They are necessary in order to secure the independence and effectiveness of their action. So the independence and effectiveness of their actions, to secure it, the parliament privilege is being given to maintain their authority, their dignity, their honor, and to protect their member from obstruction in discharge of their parliamentary responsibility. It is a supreme responsibility, so we need to save it. We need to give certain privileges to them. Now, but there is one more important thing. Parliament privileges, as said, it is given to, is enjoyed by two houses of parliament, their committee and their members, right? Now you can say that president also comes under it, but there is a clarification that parliament privileges do not extend to the president, who is an integral part of the parliament. President is an integral part. I have told this in previous lecture. He is an integral part of parliament. We come organization on reading organization of parliament by two houses and president. But parliament privileges do not extend to the president. Now it is given under 105. And there are two articles, 105 and 194, which talks about parliament privileges. In 105, it talks about the parliament, and the 194 about state. So both are different. They are same, but about center and state. In that way, they are different. Then classification. Parliament privileges, it can be classified into two broad categories. First is House of Parliament collectively, and second is by member individually. So as said previously, that parliament privileges, they are the special right, immunity and some exemptions which are enjoyed by two House of Parliament, comma, their committee and their members, all differently. But in broad way, we have classified into first the privilege enjoyed by House of Parliament collectively, and second by individual members. Right? Now, let us understand what is collective privileges. What all include collective privilege? We know what collective privilege is. The privilege is enjoyed by House of Parliament collectively. Right? So, these are the right, as the first point says, to publish its report. The Parliament, House of Parliament have a right to publish its report, its debates and proceedings. If any report is there, if any debate is going on in the house, if there is any proceeding going in the house, they have a right to publish it. And they also have the right to prohibit any other from publishing the same. If they have given a right to publish it, they also have a right to restrict anyone to publish it. So the 44th, if we read the first point, the 44th Amendment Act of 1978 restored the freedom of press to publish true reports of parliamentary proceeding without prior permission of the House. But it is not applicable in the case of secret sitting. Then second point, it can exclude strangers from its proceeding and hold secret sittings to discuss some important place. Again, this is a privilege. They can exclude the strangers from proceeding. They can go to some, they can hold their meetings by secret sitting. Any important matter if they want to discuss, this is also privilege, parliament privilege. Then it can make rule, third point, to regulate its own procedure, the huge privilege. They can make their rule to regulate their own procedure and conduct its business and to adjudicate upon such matter. So to regulate, to make rule, regulate its procedure, 3 points we are getting from here. It can make rules first, second, to regulate its own procedure, third, conduct of its business and to adjudicate upon such matter. But not just, these are not just enough, there are many. Like, it can publish member as well as outsider for breach of its privilege, its contempt by. So it can punish also member as well as outsider for its contempt. Then it has right to receive immediate information of arrest, detention, conviction, imprisonment and release of a member. Then it can institute inquiry and order the attendance of witness and send for relevant paper record. The courts are prohibited to inquire into the proceeding of a house or its committee. A very major, I think we should note it, a privilege given to the parliament, that court cannot, they are prohibited to inquire. They cannot inquire into the proceedings of a house or its committees. What proceeding goes, they can't inquire into it. And no person can be arrested. Very important privilege. No person, either a member or an outsider, can be arrested. No legal process, civil or criminal, can be served with the presence of the house without the permission of the presiding officer. So without the permission, no one can be arrested. No legal process can be initiated. So basically, no case. They have an immunity from civil and criminal proceeding. Basically, this means to say this. They have a strong immunity from civil and criminal immunity. Right? Moving on to individual privileges. So collective is well understood. Moving on to individual. Again, they cannot be arrested during the session of parliament, and 40 days before the beginning and 40 days after the end of session. Specifically, it is given under that they cannot be arrested during the session of parliament and 40 days before the beginning and 40 days after the end of a session. So this privilege is available only in civil case and not in criminal or any preventive detention case. Then they also have a freedom of speech in parliament. So in that case, no member is liable to any proceeding in any court for anything said or any vote given by him in parliament. Then they are exempted from jury service. They can refuse to give evidence. Again, a big privilege. They can refuse to give evidence and appear as a witness in a case pending in a court when parliament is. So if a parliament is in session, they can refuse. They have a right that they can refuse to give any evidence if they call for it, or to appear as a witness in any case which is pending in a court. These are some classification: collective privilege and individual privileges. So if we see the privileges, it also include freedom of speech, isn't it? And immunity from civil and criminal proceedings. Like for freedom of speech, they have a right of speech in the parliament. The democracy, parliamentary democracy, the freedom of speech in parliament, it is guaranteed. So this is basically given to members to enable them to express themselves freely in house without any fear or favor. They are in favor, they are not, or anything. They can freely speak. But I'll also tell you that in England this freedom was established in 17th century, and so this freedom came, it was there in England from 17th century, the freedom of speech. So in India, freedom of speech in parliament is safeguarded by Article 105, Clause 1 and Clause 2, which I'll be showing you in the next. What does the clauses says particularly? Now, here it is, 105. It says, First one, subject to the provision of this constitution and the rules and standing order regulating the procedure of parliament, there shall be freedom of speech in parliament. So freedom of speech comes here, the first privilege, right? Then second, no member of parliament shall be liable to any proceeding in any court in respect of anything said or any vote given by him in parliament or any committee thereof, and no person shall so be liable in respect of publication. Again, the same thing. They can publish. Then third, power, privileges, immunity of House of Member and Members Committee. It shall be defined. Yes, as per the 15th Constitution, 44th Amendment Act, fine. Then provision, last clause of the last point, clause 1, 2, 3, it shall apply in relation to person who by virtue of this constitution have the right to speak in and otherwise to take part in proceedings. So altogether it says that the freedom of speech, immunity from civil and criminal, and a right of publication, the third point says right of publication of proceedings. Then fundamental rights and legislative privileges, that's different. So these are all the rights given to the. And under 194, it is the same. It's just to the state. So you can go through it. It's just 194 and it's 105. Like the first point, if you see after the second, the last line, there shall be freedom of speech in legislature of every state. Then second, no member of legislature of a state shall be liable to any proceedings. Then third, about the publishing, and so on. So this is a simple. Parliament privilege is extremely simple. So it should be noted here that Parliament till now has not made any special law to exhaustively codify all the privileges. So there is no any special law is not made. They are only based on 5 sources: constitutional provision, which I have told 105 and 194, then various laws which are made by Parliament, then rule of both the houses, parliamentary conventions, and judicial interpretation. So that's it on the Parliament privileges, and I also add on to breach of privilege and contempt of house. So if there is an act or omission which obstruct the House of Parliament, its members, to perform their function, right? So that is treated as a contempt of house, which is against any act which is against the dignity and authority and honor of the house. It is treated as contempt of house, right? And breach of privilege, it may amount to only contempt of house, but contempt of house may include a breach of, both can include things, but contempt of house have a wider implication. Not breach of privilege, it's just mere breach. Contempt of house has a wider implication. There may be contempt of house without any specific committing of a breach of privilege. So that is the whole thing. Like suppose if any disobedience to an order, legitimate order of the house, it is not a breach of privilege but can be punished as a contempt of house. So that is the whole thing. Now we know the sources of the privilege, right? It is 105. Constitution has given, it mentioned 2 privilege: freedom of speech in Parliament, right of publication of its proceeding, and other privileges also. Then same goes for 194. Yes, so that's it in Parliament privileges. Thank you. And in the next lecture we'll be doing unit 2, which we'll see. We'll be doing unit 2 and then about president, and hopefully it's about union president, and then we will be moving forward to prime minister. Thank you.